And now, here's your host, Alessandra Torresani.
Jillian Romero Chaves, welcome to Emotional Support. This is so fun. I apologize because I'm not usually in this like really boring background. I'm visiting family, and so I'm in a hotel room. So if we hear, random pool noise, I apologize. So we're going to start with that. But I'm so excited to be having this interview with you right now. You know, dating is something that I don't do anymore because I'm married with a baby, but I have so many incredible listeners who are in the dating world. And this is something I did an episode a few months back that was specializing in this. And it was so popular. It did so well. People love to hear it. They love the advice. So I thought, okay, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity to bring up this topic again with a new, fresh voice to kind of discuss what we can do with our mental health, with dating and all this. So first and foremost, Jillian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to be such a dating specialist?
Sure. So thank you again for having me on your show. I'm super excited to talk to you today. I've been looking forward to it. A little bit about me. So actually, I've been an automotive executive for like the last 8 years.
Wow.
Completely thriving in that business and really loving it. Working directly with different car dealerships and brands. And really being a girl boss in my own right, like just having a really fun time enjoying that piece. And at that time, I was also in a relationship. Someone that I believed was going to be the father of my children, my partner, everything. And then COVID happened. So during COVID, I was home more. I wasn't traveling as much. And then I had actually found out that he had been cheating on me the entirety of our relationship. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was shocked. I was just shocked, devastated. And what's more, it's like when you're in a situation like that, you lose confidence in yourself, right?
Oh, 100%.
Like, how did I not know? I'm a smart woman. I graduated a great school. I was really I was doing well in my business. I have a great, I pride myself in being able to really understand people. I talk to all different kinds of people in all different situations, especially in car sales.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to see this in my own relationship. Someone that I had been with for 3 years, and someone who I believed was, the partner who was going to be going in the long haul with me. And we were close to being engaged at that point. So it was something that was just really shocking.
And as someone who has been cheated on before, who can speak from experience in my previous relationship, I think that what really almost triggers me when I hear that happen to someone is it's you're right. It's like, I'm a smart person. How did I not see this coming? Or how did I not see the signs? And, I actually discovered it. My own personal thing. I discovered it because my computer was left open, and it was almost like he wanted me to see it because he was having a conversation with this girl. He was making fun of my mental illness. Like, that's what you get for being with someone who's bipolar. And I just was like, okay, in what world? And I think the most messed up part of all of it, which I don't know if this happened to you, but all the people around me that I thought were my friends, that were our friends together, they knew. And they knew that he was having this behavior, and they were talking him through, being like, well, if you want to end things with Alessandra, you probably need to do that before you start having, another relationship. And I'm like, how did I get totally played by not only a significant other that I thought I was going to marry and have kids with, like you were saying, but also, how did the people around me get away with this? And I trusted these people, crying to them and going to them. So I feel you. I hear you. You are seen, you're heard right now. Please continue on. Yes.
No, and I did feel that. So, especially with his family. So we were definitely joining families at that point in terms of holidays, shared holidays, building good relationships with his family, with his mother, with his, in-laws, with his sister-in-law, with his brother, all those pieces. And I do have a feeling that they did know. And the reality is while I was in that relationship with him, he improved as a person. Like you could see it, not only mentally, physically, professionally, because that's the type of person that I am, right? When I
You're
go,
encouraging someone, right?
I am. And I
Be
was
the best
providing that
version.
kind of support. And I think that's something that his family was hoping he would continue and honor, and it didn't. And I don't know, because I can't put words in his mouth, but that was a circumstance that was just really hurtful too on that side, because I thought I was building close relationships and I didn't feel protected and safe at that
No,
point.
of
Like
course not.
in terms of like, who are these people and why are they letting this happen? And, they told me that they were, loving me and accepting me as a future daughter-in-law. Like, how does that translate? And
Right.
it really just doesn't. But yeah, so at the end of the day, I mean, I was devastated, and I was really ashamed to tell my story at first because, again, I'm a smart person. I've been successful in my business life and career. I deal with people all the time. Like, how did this happen? And then once I got past the shame of it, I was actually I came to a place where I was like, well, I'm in my 30s. I need to start dating again because family and marriage is important to me. And I still want to pursue that. I would love to have children in a 2-parent household. Those are important things to me. But honestly, I was terrified to start dating again. Like, I was
Yes.
so terrified. It's like you lose your confidence in being able to choose the right partner, right?
And you
this is a
almost
huge
lose your
struggle.
identity of who you are, because the person that you were was someone that was open and trustworthy and loving. And you
Yeah.
don't ever want to bring, I think that this happened to me in my current relationship, where I never wanted to bring past trauma from other relationships, thinking that, oh, because that person cheated on me, then everyone is going to cheat on me, therefore, in the future. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of self-work to realize you can't put that on someone else. It's not
Oh yeah.
their problem.
There's a huge level of awareness that it needs to occur to that. I remember early on in dating, right after I had split, not so long, it was like 6 months. I gave it 6 months to start dating again. And I remember if the person that I went on a date with was driving the same car, I would get triggered. Like, oh man, he
Wow.
drives the same car. Or maybe he mentioned that he's shares a similar religion as my ex. And I'm like, oh no. Like, everything like that
Yes.
would cause me a moment of panic, like sheer panic, just because I'm
Wow.
so nervous about being in that kind of situation again where I had so much hurt and trauma.
Sure.
And not only that, I mean, with all of like dating and trying to go through it, it's also about just being aware of, I could pick that same person again, right? The statistics
Right.
show that these patterns that you're attracted to might repeat themselves in what you think you're attracted to. It's a pattern that's familiar. It's not necessarily healthy,
Right.
right? And that's
Right.
something, upon reflection, after the breakup, after therapy, I did dating coaching, I did different things to kind of explore like why I ended up where I was, because I'm a
What is
very
dating
curious
coaching?
person. Yeah, so there's actually dating coaches out there to kind of help you navigate, because it is so hard to understand if you're choosing a partner based on values, long-term goals, all of these things, or if you're choosing a partner based on patterns of that you found familiar in the past, right?
Wow.
So
Yes.
maybe if you grew up being a people pleaser, or you grew up in a family where your parents were divorced, and I'm the oldest child. I did grow up in a family where I was divorced, so I was always a person who wanted to fix, right,
Mm,
everything, fix, 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 and that brought me
sure.
joy. So
Right.
when I was presented with this person who presented very much like a fully good human being, but he
Right.
had some things that he could kind of improve upon, like his confidence in himself and his work and all this other stuff. I was like, ooh, this is something I can help with. This is something I
Right.
can really help with. And it
Right.
made me feel good, which
Right.
isn't necessarily a healthy
No.
connection at all.
No. No.
Because we don't want to be fixing people in our relationship. Like, they need to be able to come establish we can support them, but not fix them.
So that's
And
really
that was something
interesting that you did do the dating coach, and I think that that would be a great recommendation for people who are out there that maybe, or even, I'm sure it's helpful. I mean, I don't know, you tell me, is it even helpful for someone who maybe has not been in a real long-term relationship before and doesn't know even what to look for, or is constantly just dating but never settling down in something serious? Like, I'm sure that there's different ways that they can help out.
Oh, yeah. So there's wonderful dating coaches
Um,
out there. They are definitely on the more expensive side. So it's something to be aware of, which is why I created my technology that I did, Clara for Daters, to allow for a space where you're not having to pay big fees for a dating coach to
mm,
kind of help you navigate. And you're
mm,
right. There are a lot of people who don't necessarily have a lot of experience these days dating. And that's extremely true of the younger generations. So dating apps occurred in 2012, right? Like it's still fairly recent that
right.
these dating apps started becoming part of this world. Now imagine all these people, and I graduated around that time. I didn't date
Mm,
a lot in college. I was really ambitious. I really was focused on my studies, and I
yeah,
really wanted to like get that right. So I didn't really date a
sure.
lot. So once I hit the dating scene, I really didn't have the experience or the
Mm,
knowledge to navigate dating apps, where dating apps are just a plethora of options and you're trying to figure out what works for you. But if you didn't do the experience, the in real life experience of learning what feels good in a relationship, what a
right.
healthy connection is, it's hard for you to seek those healthy connections on a dating app because they
Yes,
weren't designed that way for us to seek healthy connections. It
right,
was more for us to seek just a connection,
right,
period,
right.
which is why we're just in a world that everyone's overwhelmed. You hear often we delete the apps, we re-download them, we get ghosted. That's just bad behavior, and it's because we're choosing people that we just don't we're not we don't know what to look for. We're not
Right,
sure.
and I feel like you can put on such a fake persona of who you
Mhm.
are or what you want, and it's so much easier to catfish people too, I feel like, but that's another topic, but I feel like but I think it is true, it's like you can put on this fake persona of who you are and get away with whatever, and so it's like, oh, someone could be attracted to that because they look, like, gorgeous and they look, hot or whatever, but is that really, like, the type of person they are? They may be a terrible human being.
Yeah, so I call that the mother of your children versus a supermodel dilemma, right? Because that's
I
what
love
you're
that.
attracted to it, and I get that. I'm not a saint when it comes to that stuff either. Like I'm trying to figure that stuff out and stay
Sure.
present, right? I still get so distracted by those tall boy energy vibes. Like when
Yeah.
there's guys like that are my height that are like perfectly okay and they stay that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's where Clara for Daters comes in. So how it works is it kind of helps you rewire your brain so you're learning what a healthy connection looks like and seeking
Mm,
those healthy connections. So basically, let me give you an example. I started dating again using the app in February. And this is where it's kind of helped me. It's not a dating app. You're not going to meet people on it. It's about logging your dates. Think about it like when you're food journaling, right? And where
okay.
food journaling helps you make healthy decisions on what you're eating,
Sure.
Clara helps you make healthy decisions on the connections that you're seeking. So
I
that's kind of
love
how.
that.
Yeah. So basically, say I've been on the apps and I lined up a date for Tuesday from a guy that I met from Hinge.
Okay.
And he's someone that's super interesting. He's not necessarily my type, but he's interesting, and he had great banter back and forth. And it's on Tuesday. I'm excited for it, so I go. It is Tuesday. It's in the middle of the week, so of course I'm
Yeah,
thinking about work, right?
yeah.
And I'm not necessarily thinking to stay out late because I want to get up early. All of those kind of factors
Sure.
playing in. I go to the date. He's super respectful. He's thoughtful. He asked me great questions about myself. And the conversation's great, but I don't necessarily have the butterflies, right?
Right. The
Like
spark,
he's cute, he has a
which is
smile, but I
dangerous sometimes. The butterflies can be
which
very dangerous.
which is dangerous, exactly. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh well, I don't know. I have another date planned for Friday from a guy that I met on Bumble, and he's definitely my type. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of already thinking about Friday, even though
Sure.
I'm sitting in Tuesday and thinking,
Sure.
well, Friday is more
You're
my
not in
type.
the present. Right.
Not in the present. So anyway, I go through the day and he's super thoughtful. Again, he asked me right away, when can I see you again? All those things. And I kind of leave it open-ended. Oh yeah, we'll see, text me, because I'm thinking about Friday. Right.
Yeah.
So then I go on Friday. On Friday, again, I'm super excited to go to this date because because I know from the pictures, I'm
Yeah.
already a little more attracted to him, right?
Right.
He's more
Of
my type.
course.
It's also Friday. So I'm gonna have a margarita
It's
because I'm gonna
also
sleep in the morning.
Friday and you're
Yeah.
like feeling it. You're excited. You're like
Yeah.
ready. You're like, it is Friday.
Yeah, exactly. It's Friday. I'm gonna have a margarita. I'm gonna wear that cute top that I just bought. Like I'm feeling good about this, right? I'm gonna sleep in. No big deals on Saturday morning. I'm all good.
Yeah.
I go on the date on Friday. He shows up a little bit late, but
Gross.
he tells me that he was working and he got distracted. And he apologized, but he said, "I'm so sorry, I got distracted." And me, I mean, he's really cute when he's telling me this, and I'm also like, well, I really love men who are passionate about what they do, right? So that's a good thing because he's passionate about what he does.
For me, that would have already been out the door because my biggest pet peeve is people being late. I think that you should always be 15 minutes early because 15 minutes early means you're on time, and anything on time means you're late. So for me, I would have been like, you know what? You didn't think about me. You should have been nervous and been there earlier to make sure to see how I got out of the car, what I look like. Am I like picking a wedgie out of my butt right now? Like, am I getting a booger out of my nose? Like, I want you to see every single detail. That's me. But this is Jillian's story. So we're hearing Jillian's story.
No. And I don't disagree with you. Normally, that is how I feel. In a work situation, that's absolutely how I feel. But when he's a very cute guy that I met on Bumble.
He's very tall.
And he's tall. And he's telling me that he's so passionate about what he does that he got distracted. Like, that's pretty attractive to me. Like, ooh, like this guy's passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
So anyway, that happens. He explains it away. He's a little rude to the wait staff, but it was because he told me he was hangry because he skipped lunch because of work.
Oh, so, well.
Guys get hangry, right? Like, do you see what I'm doing here? Do you see how my mind is like forgiving all of these things in the moment as it's happening? Yeah. So then he, we have a good date. He doesn't really ask me a lot of questions about me. He talks a lot about what he does. But again, I find that so attractive because he's passionate about what he does. Sure. And I love seeing people with a purpose and a passion. Yeah. At the end of the day, he gave me a nice big hug. He said, I'll reach out soon. He didn't really say anything else, but I was like, oh man, I can't wait for this guy to text me. I can't wait for this guy to text me. Right. That's how I felt leaving this day. So anyway, that's kind of the scenario.
And you wait all weekend for him to text.
You wait all weekend, right? You're looking, and we girls, guys do this too.
The other guy probably already messaged you to make sure that you got home safely.
Exactly. So there's the difference. But again, my brain is needing to be a little bit rewired here, right? Where are our traction? Where is it going? And what are we seeking healthy connections? So anyway, with Clara now, I actually log these dates. So I go back to Clara. I log prospect 1 on the first date. Clara as designed with psychology design questions to ask you thoughtful questions to make you think about what happened in that present time, right? So first it's going to ask you, how was your mood going into the date? Well, if you remember, it was Tuesday. I was feeling meh, so it wasn't really off to a good start anyway. And then it asks you some other questions. Did you feel respected? Yes. Did you feel safe? Yes. Was your date asking you questions about yourself? Yes. Was he nice to those around you? Yes. All of these questions, right, are out of a 1 to 10. And this is first date questions. So they're very basic. As you go on to further dates, they get a bit more complicated. But you actually see, oh man, this guy from Tuesday scored a 10. He literally scored a 10. Right. And I was going to blow him off because I was excited about Friday, right? So I'm like, well, maybe I should think about that. And then I go and I log Friday night guy. And I realize some of these questions, like, was he respectful of your time? No. And there's no maybe. There's no, but I can't write that in the app. It's yes, no, and it's question out of 10, right? Wow. Was he nice to those around you?
No.
Well, no, he wasn't. Yeah, no. Did he ask you questions about yourself? No. Was it obvious that he was into you? No, he still hasn't texted me back, right? Yeah. So actually seeing these two numbers side by side, I'm like, Jillian, what are you thinking? Like, yes, I need to go on another date with this guy from Tuesday from Hinge because Bumble obviously is scoring lower. So that's just a way. And Clara for Daters is not going to tell you, don't go for the 5, go for the 10. Sure. But those numbers, when you're looking at those numbers directly, you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I should really start going on that 10. So what ended up happening is early this year, I started going on multiple dates with guys that were scoring 10 that I wouldn't have gone on a second date with. And I actually had some really great relationship experiences come out of that time period. They ended up not working, but I was surprised and how my brain is being able to be rewired to kind of support this new trajectory of seeking 10s, not 10s as in hot 10s, but and they're still very cute. There's still chemistry, but seeking 10s as in healthy connections 10s.
And with the Clara for Daters, and when you say that these are, questions that are, they start off really basic because it's obviously a first date and then they get deeper and deeper. Did you work with a psychologist or a psychiatrist with this program? How did you come up with the questions? Like, how did this all come together?
Yeah, so it's a psychologist that I worked with to come up with these questions, and we have
Wow.
them currently going through dates 1 through 10. And my goal is to keep creating so that I have more questions as we
Sure.
go forward. But these questions are basically trying to establish physical safety, that you're feeling physical safety, that you're having relational safety, that you're
Mm.
having emotional safety, that there's chemistry, and that there's
Yes.
value shared. So those are
Right.
the premises of these 10 questions. So each series of 10, these premises are being addressed to identify if this is true for you. Just a
Yeah.
yes, no. And that's kind of how it
And I
works.
think it's so great that it's just a yes, no, because we always love to put a but, right?
Yeah.
I know that there were so many guys in my past relationship. I mean, like I'm sounding like so many guys. But there were like a lot of dudes that I look back at now and I'm like, why would I ever make an excuse for this person? Why would I ever do this? And I think about some of like the worst first dates that I've ever had and looking like when I would originally be like, I would never go out with them again. Now looking back at it, I'm like, oh, they were just like really kind of quiet and sweet,
Yeah.
like nothing wrong with them. But what was I attracted to? I wanted the person that didn't want me. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted,
Yeah.
and that's always what happens. And so it does take time and perspective. And it's interesting because, you know, uh, unbeknownst to me, like for a whole year, I was single. And after the bad relationship that I was in that I told you earlier, before I met my husband. And it was funny because I met my husband 3 different times, 3 different occasions, and I did not give him the time of day
Yeah.
because I wasn't, and it was over a couple months because it's not that I wasn't attracted to him. It wasn't that didn't want to date him, because when we started dating, it was like right away, full relationship, and nonstop. But I was not ready. I
Hmm.
was not emotionally ready for a commitment. I was not emotionally ready to settle down because I didn't know who I was. And I
Yeah.
think that that's very important for people to realize and understand. While it's really nice to find commitment and a partner and someone to share your life with, you need to be able to love yourself first and really understand what you're looking for. And there is no shame in needing guidance and needing help or needing Clara for daters, needing a
Yeah.
dating coach, whatever it is that suits you. Now, I have a question of your experience. What would you say is, since you don't work with any particular app, that I can ask you this. What is your favorite app that you would say for relationships, for maybe more of a serious relationship, less of a hookup?
I think they're very geo based in that I
Mm.
feel like when I'm in Orange County, Bumble seems to be better. When I'm in LA, Los
Wow.
Angeles, Hinge
Yeah.
tends to be better. And I feel like those are kind of the two that I play with. Match.com is another one that I've gone on. The hard part is, and women who are in business, and even men who are in business, like in terms of BDC and organizing leads and prospects, it's extremely difficult to like transition into that mode when you're looking at all these
Sure.
different people, because that's
Sure.
that's what ends up happening is we tend to treat it kind of a little like a business, like we have to put in the time to actually go through these messages,
Yeah.
review the, let's call them your resume as opposed to your profile, right?
Right.
Review the
Right.
resume, look for key things. Which ones do I want to set up a phone call with? Which ones
Right.
do I want to set up an interview with? I mean,
Right.
unfortunately, as the dating apps, I don't think dating apps in themselves are an evil technology. I really don't. I do think that they were an opportunity for us to get to know a bigger group of people.
Mm.
However, we didn't learn how to use them correctly. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. So, like in June, the Surgeon General came out with the loneliness epidemic. Like, we're literally in
Right.
a loneliness epidemic here in the United States. And that was when I read it, I was like, isn't that crazy that we're literally in a loneliness epidemic when there's never been so many means of communication and connection in our history before? Like, if
Right.
we're talking about social media, we're talking about dating apps, we're talking about all these formats, Snapchat, all of them, that people are able to communicate and connect, yet we're lonely. And
Yeah.
my only hypothesis in that moment, hearing that, was thinking, well, the value of our social connections are not being met in terms of having a space that that there's not a feeling of loneliness.
Sure.
And I think that's where we get in a tricky space where we're not able to like get off the apps. We're sitting literally just having these messages back and forth, and then ghosting occurs and you never actually meet people in real life. And that's where I'm hoping with Clara, we can kind of create that empowerment that, hey, let's get to the next step. This is the first date. Let's review it. It's not going to be high intensity. It's someone getting to know you. And there's different kind of tricky things in the app to kind of make your mindset feel that it's about getting to know the person. So like, for example, I have you're able to categorize where you feel you are in that relationship with that person. And I make it fun. I call it tryouts, but I want people to realize that in the first 3 to 5 dates, you don't know this person.
No.
You are not committed to this person. You have no idea. This person is a stranger, right? So think about it as a fact gathering, curiosity exercise where you're just trying to understand, does this person make me feel safe in all of those categories that I said? And does this person share my values, right? And that's kind of what we need to like look for.
Well, and speaking of loneliness, I mean, I feel like with, COVID triggered a whole new loneliness that no one had even ever comprehended. And I felt that, even living with my husband and having family close by and all that. And I experienced loneliness postpartum. Loneliness is something that will follow you, whether you're single, dating or not. It follows. And it's a really tough thing because we're always afraid to share how we're really feeling because we're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of losing our jobs. We're afraid of losing friends. What is something that maybe you do that you could share with those listeners out there that you do for your loneliness? Like if you've ever felt that way, for me, it's trying to find some connection, even if it's me coming on a podcast like this and talking with you or sharing my audience going live. Like there's something about connecting with people that I think is so important and it helps with me. What is something that helps with you?
So for me, I've always been very like data driven. So it actually helps to understand the numbers for me to put it in perspective. So it's the feeling of loneliness is not so wane, right? So when I'm feeling lonely, I feel like, oh my God, this is happening to me, and it's a big weight on my chest, right? But when I actually experience, and this is why I created Clara for Daters too, when I go and I look at the world and I join these Facebook groups or just hear other voices in this space, I realize I'm not alone. And there are other people in this world who are experiencing the same thing that I am.
Sure.
Now, the hard part is taking that online to in real life. That's the hardest part that I've been able to figure out. Like, for example, my closest friends and my family, they're married. So they're having a different, like the connection that I have with them is different than the connection they're having with me because they have a person. They have a partner, they have a person that they're going to. Whereas I'm only getting that connection from them. And that's it. They're not there. Like there's no other person for me to go to. So one of the things that I created, and this is actually, we're having our first Clara for Daters Spill the Tea Party on Sunday. And I'm basically creating a symposium of experts in the space of wellness, of dating, of matchmakers, all of the different people, confidence coaching. Cool. So that we can all be together and kind of talk about what's going on and how we're feeling about our dating journeys, about how we're feeling single, how we're feeling and I encourage dater advocates to come because my family and friends who are in relationships, they want to help me, right? They do, but they just don't know how. So this is also a symposium for I can bring them with me and say, hey, let's talk about my dating experience, my journey as a single person, my individuality, how does it work? And then it also empowers them to kind of take a look and reflect on their own relationships, right? To see how they're dating. Like, are they being thoughtful in their dates? Have they been going on dates and kind of reviewing those romantic relationships? But I'm extremely excited about this in real life element. Because I think it's incredibly important. I've invited psychology students from different universities because this anxiety, it came out in Forbes, I think earlier this week. BetterHelp did a survey and basically discovered 47% of Americans are having extreme high anxiety when it comes to dating and their love lives. And a majority of them are coming from those generations, millennial and younger. And again, I think it has a direct correlation to the dating apps and the time that it's coming out.
Well,
So
of course.
with everyone
Yeah, it
having
has
this
to.
stress, yeah.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. I've talked about this with friends before, but, you know, I think it was Hinge, and correct me if I'm wrong because I've never been on Hinge before, but I've had friends that have had successful experiences on Tinder who have gotten married, who have multiple babies from it, like who have gotten married because of Hinge. You know what I mean? I've heard all the success stories from every app, truly. But one of the interesting things that a friend of mine had recently brought up about Hinge is that you can see who likes you and then you decide if you like them or if you don't, right? That's Hinge. Okay. And she was saying, she was like, yeah, you would think it would be exciting to go, oh, look, all these people like me. This is really exciting. But then she goes, I don't want to be the one that's like, no, I don't like you. I don't like you. And then she's like, I feel bad, which then puts me into a state of, I don't want to do this. This feels icky. I don't want to be the bad person. And she's like, it never feels like just organic and it's just happening. Especially if you've always been in relationships where you've never met through a dating app. It feels so foreign and scary. So I think that something like Clara for Daters, I think that's so cool that you've done this because it kind of, even though the dating world online and through the apps can be very scary and very difficult, this almost will like put into perspective and make it more data driven. And you're right, like more like, okay, you know what, it's like a project and like let's see like what's going on, because it is so foreign and it is so new for people. So I think it's just really great. And I'm so happy that you did this, and I can't wait to hear your success story. And I love that you use it yourself, so you know that it truly works.
Yeah. I mean, I had a problem. Like, I had a big problem personally, and I wanted to see, and I went out there and I saw other people also had that same problem. And my goal is eventually, if we choose healthier partners, right? If we choose healthier connections, then that'll do a lot of good for us mentally, physically, well being, all
Yeah.
of those pieces, it translates. And that's my goal. I mean, honestly, I really would love to see people just forming healthy connections. The loneliness epidemic is huge to my heart. You mentioned people having success on dating apps. I do agree there is success, but the numbers actually show it's the baby boomers and the older generations who have better success on the dating apps. And it's because they have that experience and knowledge of dating before dating apps existed.
Sure. And totally. And the people that I speak of, the ones that met on the dating apps, they're my age. I'm 36 years old and a little bit older, and they've been on normal. Like this was their first time on a dating app, and it happened to work like the first person. So it's not like my younger cousin's generation where they don't know anything else but a dating app, and they don't know what it's like to meet someone at a bar like you used to, or on a blind date. You used to be set up on blind dates. Like that was a thing, and it's a little different now. Now it's like, oh, you can search them on social media. You can, Google them. You can find their financial background. You can find out their social security number. You can do all this stuff that you couldn't do before, and I think that that's another thing maybe I would recommend is like, don't do too much research on someone so you can actually hear what they are, because, a lot of people have false, it's a false, it's false. It's bullshit on it. Excuse my French, online.
Well, and that's where in terms of like, if you come from an anxious attachment style, right? Or a people pleaser anxious attachment style where it's part of that need to look for someone, look at their social media, look at, background check, all this stuff early on, then this isn't way, and I come from an anxious attachment style, especially now after my breakup, like it's just been very anxious. But now I have a place to divert my anxiety into Clara, where I'm looking and I'm adding notes, because there's also a feature where I can add notes. And I can say, this is how I'm feeling right now. Like he texts right away. I feel good about this. Or he hasn't texted in a couple of days. I don't know. So it's addressing those thoughts that could, be in a different place. They could be looking at his Instagram and all this other stuff. Instead, I'm putting all the information and all that energy into just collecting information here. And honestly, Clara for Daters is the tool for everyone to become a love scientist of their own life. right?
Oh, I
Like, this
love
is for
that.
you to figure it out. Yeah. So this is your tool. You're a love scientist. You're the only one who can figure out your love life. Like, matchmakers are great. People who set you
Yeah.
up are great. Dating apps are another option. But it's really up to you to figure out who your partner is and who that healthy connection is. And in order to do that, you have to become a love scientist, unlocking all the secrets of your heart. And Clara for Daters is the tool that kind of allows you to do that.
Oh, I love that. And how can everyone get Clara for Daters?
So it's available now in the App Store. It's free.
Okay.
Just search Clara for Daters. This is the version that I really wanted to put out there for everyone. My goal is to get as many people on there as possible. I won't be charging for this version ever. This is something that I really, truly believe in my heart. It's something that's important for everyone. But yeah, if you go on the app, Clara for Daters, you go in the App Store, it's there. And we will be doing events, and I'm opening them up to everyone. I'm hoping to do them in different cities around California first, and then kind of move it along. But these symposiums of like connection and review for love scientists to get together and compare notes on how they're figuring out their own dating lives.
Oh, I love that. And Jillian, I'm going to ask you my final question that I ask everyone.
Yeah.
What is your emotional support?
Right now, I mean, I didn't say this in the beginning of that phone call or of our conversation, but when I found out that my ex had been cheating on me, I was scared to leave. Like, that was another piece where it was like, and so many people deal with that. But I knew that I had to. And in that moment, I actually called my mom, put her on speaker, and said, "Mom, this is what's happening." And I said, "I need to get out of here." And she said, "Jillian, go." And that was how I was able to leave my ex, because he was sitting there saying that, he needed help. He would work on it. He wanted me to stay. He was trying to convince me to stay in that relationship. And in the deep in my bones, there was a part of me that wanted to be his savior. But then there was a part of me that said this wasn't the person that deserved me. And that's where I had to put my mom on the speaker and tell her what was going on with him in the room. And she said, "Jillian, go." And I'm just so blessed and thankful that I have such a family that can do this for me, all of my support. But yeah, that my family is my biggest support, and I'm very blessed and lucky to have them.
Oh my gosh, I love that. My mom is my best friend. So I've been in those situations where she has I've felt a moment of weakness being like, well, I'm going to stay. And I felt a moment of weakness even after I learned the way that he was cheating on me and the things that he had said. I still stayed, and I was like, well, no, he's going to get better. Like, it's a mistake. It's lies, all this stuff. And if I didn't have my mom and I didn't have the support system of family and my friends who I consider to be my family, I wouldn't be here today. So I'm right there with you. So Jillian, thank you so much.
Thank you.